the demand is high. Show the strength that just can't be defied. I'm gonna hit you right where it hurts. I'm gonna give you everything that you deserve. Feel me from the skin, tear me from the rain. Does it make you happy now? Tear me from the bone, tear me from myself. Are you feeling happy now?
Good day, everyone. I hope that you're all having a lovely week so far. I watched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1 movies, and I am ready to talk about them. I will do a mini review of each movie, starting with Iron Man, then The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and then The Avengers. I will keep them as short as I can, so just kick back, relax, and enjoy the video.
I want one.
No.
Come on!
Yeah, I can fly. Been on.
This film is likely to go down in cinema history, being that it's the one that kicked off the 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Both Iron Man and The Dark Knight were released in the same year of 2008, and both set new examples of how to do superhero films, at least successfully. I absolutely love Iron Man. My initial thoughts were that it was a kick-ass fun movie, but over time, when I got more interested in film, there is so much more to it. The CGI has aged pretty well, even after 10 years. The metal Iron Man suit still looks realistic, even with the CGI over the models that they used for some of the scenes. I'm sure that there are plenty of different ways that they could have told the story, like taking it right out of the comics, but I'm pleased with the final product. We jump right in and get a taste of Tony Stark's personality with the Marines right before he gets snatched up by the 10 Rings, and then we get to know him a little more by going back a smidge prior to him showing off the Jericho missile. It is a known fact now that Robert Downey Jr. is the golden goose of the film and poster boy for the MCU. It has even reached the point where even men fangirl out over him. The fact that Robert Downey struggled with drugs and alcohol in real life and is playing a character with similar issues in his life makes the experience much more enjoyable. Thank God Tom Cruise did not get the role. Yeah, he was seriously an actual option to play as Tony Stark. We have evidence of how he handles roles like this.
Get her, Nick! Kick her ass!
Jon Favreau, the director of Iron Man, also plays as Stark's bodyguard, Happy. He's sort of a comic relief character, but it's not exactly in your face, so I kinda like him. What he chose to adapt from the comics and what to change to fit with modern day was brilliant in my opinion. You know that one robot arm that he has in his shop? I don't remember if it had a name, but that somehow had a personality. It would keep doing something wrong and whimper when it does something bad, and just the interactions that it has with Stark. It is so cute. I think that the main flaw that the movie has is how they quickly shoved in a villain for him to fight toward the end. They initially planned on having some other villains in it, such as the Mandarin or Whiplash, but chose to save them for later. Thank God for that, right? We've seen how in other superhero movies that does not always go so well. It does sort of make sense that they chose to include a big fight in the final act, as you do expect a superhero battle in a superhero movie. And just think if they kicked off the MCU, but without having any villain for Tony to face. That might have been a little more risky, so I think it was a good idea that they decided to include one. Though I think they could have done better on establishing one, but then again, they probably had some time restraints on filming or budget concerns, so who knows. The sound effects were cool.
To join that militia.
The soundtrack was rockin'. And the jokes were on point.
No one's allowed to talk, is that it? You can't talk?
No, you intimidate them.
Good God, you're a woman.
Like I said before, I love this movie. I would rate it an 8 out of 10, an 85%, and an A-. And out of the whole 20 MCU films, I would rank it as number 5. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got The Incredible Hulk. This Hulk movie was the second film by Marvel Studios released only a few months after Iron Man. What I like about it is how they made it in a way where it can be sort of its own little intro into the MCU, as well as a sort of sequel to the Ang Lee Hulk. I can't say that I love the movie, it just feels like it moves way too slow for me. His relationship with Betty is just so unappealing, and it's one of the only Marvel movies with little to no comedy where it was sorely needed. The effects are okay. The Hulk looks at least a little bit better than the original Hulk. When the Hulk and the Abomination are fighting, it does look like two special effects just clashing together. But other than that, they're good enough. I mean, for early Marvel, that's okay. To me, the way that they acted was as if it was a low-budget drama or just a small movie in general. And that could be because of the studios and actors clashing, as Universal and Edward Norton had some different ideas on what to do with the film compared to Marvel. There is very little action in it, but the few that they have should suffice for anyone wanting to see the Hulk actually smash. Blonsky and Ross are pretty good antagonists for the Hulk. You gotta give Blonsky some credit for going toe-to-toe with the giant green monster, even though he'd get wrecked. Oh wait. I noticed that they vaguely referenced Captain America's serum, which I did not realize on my first viewing. Blonsky's second fight with the Hulk is pretty darn badass, at least for a teenager watching. I got pretty pumped. There are some Easter eggs and cameos sprinkled throughout the film that would suffice any major hardcore Marvel fan. Stan Lee and Lou Ferrigno make guest appearances as a citizen and a security guard. I bet you can't guess which one was the security guard. In the opening credit sequence, a tiny reference to S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark pop up, implying that those guys are helping out Ross hunt down the Hulk. I even noticed a S.H.I.E.L.D. insignia and S.H.I.E.L.D. Ops database on a laptop screen when they were trying to track down Banner. I don't have too much more to say about the film. It's one of Marvel's weaker movies, but it's still decent enough, especially if you fast forward through all the boring parts. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the most important cameo. Tony Stark makes a last-second cameo talking to Thunderbolt Ross, which helps solidify the possibility of an Avengers film. So with the Nick Fury cameo in Iron Man and Tony Stark as a cameo in The Incredible Hulk, it began to shift into hope for the Avengers. Well, that's at least what my comic book friends told me at the time, anyway. I give The Incredible Hulk a 5 out of 10, a 50%, and a C, and I rank it as number 15 in the 20 MCU slots. Hey, would you look at that? Iron Man's back already. I have watched tons of reviews on YouTube, none of them of Iron Man 2, but when reviewers talk about Marvel or Iron Man, this film is often widely disliked. Now, I can kind of see why. The CG didn't improve all that much and looks worse in some areas. The villains, Whiplash and Hammer, are not that interesting. Stark invents a new element, and it can all turn out to be kind of rather silly. But honestly, for me, I still enjoyed the movie. When it was in movie theaters, I wasn't on YouTube all that often and never really checked reviews. So I thought that most people thought it was great, but to a lot of people it is considered a lower tier Marvel film. Let's do some exploring. Stark gets his new upgraded Iron Man suitcase suit, which I think is freaking badass. The action scenes in this movie pave way for how they do them in later movies. The inclusion of War Machine and Black Widow add funny interactions as well as one of my favorite fight scenes in the entire MCU. Black Widow kicks ass. Nick Fury and Agent Coulson also have a great role as they look after Stark and his activities. Looking at it now, after seeing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I like their inclusion even more. But my favorite part about the film is Stark's character. He's being killed by what is keeping him alive, and that affects his decisions throughout the entire film. He's drinking more, gives Potts the company, gives away items, he lets Rhodes take his suit. He even finds a little bit more love toward his father. All of that is a great way to add to his character, especially after what happened in the first film. And these events play more into his character later on. Anyway, it's a 6 out of 10, 60%, a C+. And I rank it number 13 in the 20 Marvel movies.
You made my men look like a bunch of minimum wage mall cops. That's hurtful.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy. You are an old man and a fool! You're unworthy! Davis King. His fate is in his own hands now.
Whoa, we're like seriously here. The almighty Thor. Thor was probably Marvel's first huge risk in Phase 1. Thor is a bizarre character from a bizarre world. I should know. I saw quite a variety of different versions before this, but I think they did well enough for the most part in my opinion. Asgard is gorgeous. It looks like a grand spectacle. The effects still look fantastic, with maybe a few iffy spots here and there. Agent Coulson is in it, picking up right where he left off in the middle of Iron Man 2. On my more recent viewing, I noticed that Dr. Selvig vaguely references both Bruce Banner and S.H.I.E.L.D. I hated Thor at first. His character was so obnoxious. I was like, am I really supposed to care about this guy? But I do realize now that that was just their intention so that he can go through a character arc, which starts to happen once he knows he can't pick up his own hammer. The All-Father Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, is a believable, wise father to both Thor and Loki. The scene where he banishes Thor is his best performance in the whole film. It's a shame that we don't see that much of him overall in the franchise, but oh well. Loki Doki really nails his character, played by Tom Hiddleston. I mean, do I really need to say much more about him? Everyone loves this guy. The fish out of water story was okay, I suppose, but spending more time on Asgard would have been more enjoyable. I love his pet store joke, I would like a horse. We don't have any, just cats and dogs and stuff. Then give me one of those large enough to ride. Brilliant. Just brilliant. I don't really have much else to say. 5 out of 10, 59%, C+, and number 11.
Just don't know when to give up, do you?
I could do this all day. That wasn't so bad.
That was penicillin.
Who the hell are you? The force of money.
Captain America, the last Avenger. I mean the first Avenger, or the last one to complete the team. Others have said that they enjoyed the first half of the film, but disliked the second half because it turns into a laser shootout and CGI gore fest. I agree with that, but I was still entertained enough the whole way through. The effects team did a jaw-dropping good job making Chris Evans really look like he is a small person, when in fact he is taller. Peggy Carter was just so badass that they gave her a show. I'd plan on watching it at some point, but I only saw a couple of episodes and I wasn't too into it. I mean, some of it seemed okay, but not really like I want to spend too much time there. I'm so glad they didn't make Bucky a scrawny little kid like in the comics. With Stark's dad included in this, it really made it feel like 5 separate films are connected to each other. Again, other franchises tend to struggle to do this right. I don't have a lot to say on this film. It's vastly better than the much earlier versions of Captain America and was very well casted. Chris Evans plays as a great Captain America, but not a good Human Torch. Red Skull is by no means a great villain, but by Marvel standards, he's okay. I do not understand how people actually believed that Red Skull was dead in this movie. The cube can teleport people like a portal, just like the Bifrost when it opens up. It sucks him up and teleports him to another part of space. We may or may not see him resurface again in a later movie. Anyway, the movie is a 6 out of 10, a 64%, and a B+, and it ranks as number 12.
It will be every man for himself.
If we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn sure we'll avenge it.
Dom, dum, dum. I bet you guys thought I was going to do that SpongeBob thing, right? The Avengers is the culmination of 5 separate films and a Marvel Studios celebration. They are officially out of the slumps of bankruptcy and into the spotlight, becoming trendsetters and record breakers. Holy freaking moly, this was all the rage in 2012. I mean, we hardly need an intro to any of the characters because we already know who they are because they had a whole movie behind them, or they were at least heavily featured in it, at least in some way, in one of those films. Watching it for the first time in quite a while, after spending all day watching the rest of Phase 1, I still felt excitement when I put it in. It can get you pumped. Seeing these characters interact with each other is the best. When they are all gathered in a circle, the camera spins around them, and the Avengers theme swells. It, for some reason, brings a happy tear to my eye. Not because I grew up with them, or that I'm finally happy seeing them on screen, but because I'm watching such an achievement take place before my eyes. It meant something completely different to me now than when I first saw it at the theater. I was all hyped up with my friends, and I thought that it looked totally badass, but now it feels like it impacted me even more. These characters went through a lot. The company was at the end of the rope. This was their last chance to make their mark. And they did. They are one of the most popular properties now. They set up the whole shared universe trend. They are now the top dog, and it was very well earned. I love this movie. They make being a hero look like a blast. No, it is not a perfect movie. No, it is not the best film ever, but it is quite up there in my opinion. A lot of that has to do with what led to it. It does have issues. Some effects are kind of meh. Not every joke is funny. The plot is predictable. The main threat wasn't too threatening. And it's technically quite generic, but only in some ways. Performances like Loki were fantastic. I love how these events affect Stark and Cap's character later on. It set up the world in a whole new way, and helps kick off the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil. I could probably talk about this film all day long, but others have said more than enough on it by now, and I said what I wanted to say about it. A very fun movie. I give it a 9 out of 10, a 90%, and an A. It ranks as number 2 out of 20 overall. I love this movie and can't wait to see more. If only they had some other movies out. The next step in the Marvel Saga will be on Phase 2. Later, guys. If you liked the video, please leave a like, or if you hate it, click dislike. Also, share the video with your friends and enemies, subscribe to follow this channel, and hit that bell down below to be notified when I upload.